Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Plant Medicine People webinar. We're talking about ibogaine today. It's a very hot topic these days. And it's going to be with myself. I'm Kat Courtney, with a lot of experience on the ayahuasca side and newly getting to be part of the ibogaine space thanks to Laura Shapiro, who is here to share her wisdom today. Laura and I co-founded an ibogaine clinic called Bassé last year, which has been the hardest thing we've ever done. We're going to talk about a little bit why that's the case. But first of all, Laura, hi,
Hi.
being here. Will you share a little bit about your background, first of all, how you got involved in ibogaine? Just tell us a little bit about what it is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working with ibogaine for 19 years now. My life was actually saved by this medicine. I'm a former opiate addict, and I had tried countless treatments from the best of the best, the worst of the worst, and everything in between. I had a brutal, brutal addiction. And in my final hours of desperation, I went to my family and I just kind of begged to try something new. My family had found Dr. Deborah Mash, who later became my mentor and who is our scientific advisor at Bassé. And Dr. Mash is the world's leading expert on ibogaine. She's the one that was doing trials for the FDA, the only one that's ever had approval for human testing. And she just talked to my family and really made them comfortable. And ultimately, got me in a place where I could go seek ibogaine treatment in Mexico. And yeah, my life was saved by this medicine. And so in such a profound way, the next morning after my treatment, it was just like this cathartic process where I was able to really mourn for myself and just really kind of crack me open in the best possible way and reset my brain so that I wasn't in active addiction, wasn't in active withdrawal. And it just gave me this window of opportunity to really lean in and change my life. So, yeah.
So talk about the chemistry of ibogaine, because it's really quite different than ayahuasca and other medicines. How does it do this? How does it disrupt like opiate addiction? What's happening?
I mean, I begins a full neuro reset, right? And so within 45 minutes of taking it, like if you're in active addiction with opiates, it's within 45 minutes, the withdrawals are gone. It's literally a neuro reset. It almost feels like how you update like your computer software. It's like you're updating the operating system of your mind. And it's a process of like coming home to yourself and reparenting your nervous system. And so it's just profound at how it interrupts the withdrawal symptoms and mitigates the cravings and desires to use afterwards. And it's a great antidepressant, anti-anxiety. So you feel really good and in the flow of life afterwards. And in terms of like treating trauma, so Ibogaine's fascinating because when you're in the visionary aspect of Ibogaine, it feels like you're watching a movie screen on the back of your eyelids. So you're actually watching from a third party perspective. So you're not emotionally attached. So you see how and why things have unfolded in a specific way. But because it's this third party perspective, you're able to kind of like rewrite your narrative in the sense that it doesn't have the same triggers. You're able to look at it from this different vantage point and have these like profound aha moments that basically lets you change your reaction to the trauma, to what's surfacing so that you can step out of these active cycles, loops, and behaviors.
Yeah, part of the key to what makes ibogaine unique and powerful is that kind of distance from the personal identification. We love ayahuasca. Ayahuasca doesn't give you that distance. You're deeper into the process. It's just an interesting, different way to process trauma, right? And so for people with severe PTSD, I mean, ibogaine is like the medicine we recommend because it gives that almost third party perspective where you're not so identified with it. So all right, so then let's talk about the whole sort of umbrella of why we're here is to talk about the ethics and the safety of working with ibogaine. And ibogaine is a very different medicine than ayahuasca, than mushrooms, because there are some safety factors to it, which is why it is administered in a clinical way. So can you talk about what's unique about ibogaine and why it requires this clinical setting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, with Ibogaine, it absolutely 24-hour medical care is essential. We believe that Ibogaine treatment can be done safe, but it needs proper screening, proper support, proper medical care. And the medical team needs to be properly trained, right? So they don't teach ibogaine treatment in medical school, right? So it really comes down to like, who are your advisors? How are you learning how to do this? And it's really important that the doctors are knowledgeable and know how to work with people medically and also from the lens of trauma support, right? But with Bassé, we're screening all medications prior to coming in, any pre-existing health conditions. We run EKGs every day at our center. We do a full EKG, liver panel test, and blood workup upon arrival. It really comes down to balancing electrolytes and making sure that this is safe for you to receive. But it's essential because ibogaine can prolong the QT intervals of the heart. So the medical team needs to know what they're doing and how to actually administer this medicine safely.
So how do participants, like people who are interested in the medicine, what are the questions they ask? Because there's a lot of centers that are not experts at heart health, cardiology, but
Yeah.
are administering this medicine. So what do we ask? What do we need to know in order to know that we're in good hands?
I mean, find out more information on the doctors, right? Like, is it just a general practitioner? Is it an emergency trained doctor? Is it, are they ACLS certified? So at Bassé, our medical team, they're emergency trained doctors that are all ACLS certified, and that's advanced cardiac life support, right? So they know the proper protocols, how to keep somebody safe, but then also, where did they learn their protocols, right? Like, who is teaching them? Who is mentoring them? What kind of training goes into this? How is the treatment room set up? Is it operating as a small hospital? Are they properly asking questions about your medications prior to coming in? Every supplement, every medication, like you should receive this back in writing with the amount of days you need to be off each prior to arrival. It's not a blanket statement of everything just stops for 3 days prior to arrival. Every medication has a different half-life. It depends how it's metabolized in the system, and then the pharmacokinetics in the body. So it all plays a role, right? But I think a big piece too is trusting yourself, right? Are they supportive? It's what kind of care are you getting prior to coming in, and then what kind of care are they offering for afterwards, and even on site for the preparation, the integration, right? How much support is there? Because the amount of support that you receive is equal to the amount that you'll be able to open up to be able to actually do the work to receive the medicine and get the maximum benefits out of the experience. Also, lab work on site. A lot of clinics, want you to do everything prior to coming down. But, that's questionable because labs can change. So we want to see how your labs are doing like the day before we give you treatment, not 2 months beforehand. Right. And so that's an important piece too. If they're not set up to do that on site, that's questionable at best because it means they're not truly equipped should a situation arise.
Yeah, beautiful. So let me just emphasize this that, the community here are probably very familiar with plant medicines in general, ayahuasca in particular, mushrooms. These are not medicines that have as many sort of protocols around safety because they don't have the same physical challenges. I want to emphasize that ibogaine is actually a super, super safe medicine to work with in the right educated hands. And there have been many headlines around lack of safety, and it breaks my heart when the medicine gets blamed for that because people are being reckless and they're not following what we know from decades now of studying this medicine, how to create that safety. And so it is unique. Like, ayahuasca's got lots of contraindications and things like that, but for the most part, that medicine is physically quite safe. Ibogaine has some complexities with cardiology, and so we need to know all of these things in terms of labs from people. What do you say about the folks out there that are doing just a purely psychospiritual work with ibogaine, not in a clinical setting?
Yeah, I mean, ibogaine always needs to be done in a clinical setting, right? Yeah, I can't, I'm unshakable on that. I don't think it's safe, to do it otherwise.
We know a lot of stories
Yeah.
literally of either extremely dangerous and all the way to people who have died because of being in the wrong hands. And so yeah, it's and if anybody knows me at all, I'm obviously on the shamanic train. Like I'm a big fan of working in psychospiritual shamanic settings. but ibogaine requires this medical supervision. So at Bassé, where we might be the only clinic, I don't know, where we've really tried to bring in shamanic elements because you and I are passionate about that, but through working with amazing doctors and nurses that are willing to live in both worlds, that have incredible medical expertise and understanding, especially with cardiology and emergency medicine, but also are implementing some shamanic understanding of energetic protection and opening portals and because we feel you can have it all. But really, what we want people first and foremost to know is please do not sit with places that are not medically supervised from start to finish. And we know a lot of clinics too that are treating a lot of people at a time. So can you speak to that complexity and why you feel passionate about one-on-one treatments?
Yeah, but before that, I wanted to circle back on. So, Kat did treatment at Bassé, and going into it, she had a lot of bias of because she's a shamanic facilitator, right? And so she was, questioning, well, how is this going to be a spiritual experience? And I come in the room to check on her at one point, and she's like, the heart monitor is sacred. The IV in my arm is sacred. I was wrong. This is a spiritual experience.
I got schooled. I will comment on that. It's true. I went in with a certain level of righteousness around, well, this alkaloid is extracted. It is still natural, by the way. It comes from iboga. It comes from bokanga, but I had a certain level of attitude around it. And the first thing this medicine did is to come in and school me on that of like, this is sacred. Everything is sacred and treat it as such. And these people and these machines are helping keep you safe. And I was deeply humbled. So back to the one-on-one question, though, like, why is that important?
Yeah, so we treat every patient one-on-one. So we stagger it so clients arrive on different days of the week. So at the treatment room, I mean, ayahuasca is done in like a communal setting, right? And so that's part of the medicine. But with ibogaine, it's really important for us at Bassé that it's true one-on-one care, attention, and support. And so it just really helps you feel more held and safe too. If like you have the, entire treatment room for yourself, the doctors and the nurses that are in there with you are there for you. You're never left alone, not even for 2 seconds. You have everyone's undivided attention. And a lot of clinics treat in groups. It saves a lot of money to treat in groups, right? Instead of doing this individualized one-on-one care. But we truly believe that you can go deeper into your experience, feel safer, and also have safer medical care when you have everyone's undivided attention. And ultimately, I think it just opens you up to the experience more too, of knowing that you're so held and not distracted by other people's experience. So, yeah.
I love this topic because I feel like this is the place where ibogaine and ayahuasca are polar opposites. I always want to be in community with ayahuasca. With ibogaine, it is a very private, like I want space holders and then have my own experience. And so it's really quite a different like perspective, but especially because of this medical piece that, there's somebody that goes through the issues with cardiology that can happen with ibogaine, they're not going to be able to articulate that. You have to be watching those heart monitors and aware every moment and just to be because we never know. And so it's so different and yet it's still incredibly spiritual, incredibly beautiful. It's just done in a very different way. So we've got some great questions coming in on chat. I want to address like first of all the difference between the effects, the safety, like what between ibogaine and iboga. So can you speak to like what's the difference between those medicines?
Well, I mean, Aboga's more in a ceremonial setting, right? And so it is different. And so ibogaine is one of the alkaloids found in Aboga, but for medical reasons, you want to use ibogaine instead of Aboga. So that's what we focus on. I've personally never done Aboga, so I don't want to speak to the experience too much of Aboga since that's, yeah, not fully my lane.
Rainbow's asking, are iboga ceremonies safer because of the lack of extraction? Unfortunately, not. Iboga has this same danger. And last year, the year before in Costa Rica, there were multiple deaths. Like iboga's got some of the same complexities, maybe not as common. I don't know statistically, but think of it this way. Iboga is what people work with when they're called to the shamanic community experience. But if you are dealing with severe PTSD, if you are dealing with opiate addiction or alcohol addiction, there isn't enough enough ibogaine in a dose of iboga to do the neurological reset that Laura spoke to earlier. It's still absolutely gorgeous medicine, and people have ridiculously beautiful experiences with it, but it cannot do the medical reset that we're speaking to, which is why we do the extraction and work with ibogaine as a single alkaloid to begin with. It's because it has this capacity to do what nothing else that I know of can do, which is to reset neurochemistry for both people dealing with addiction and severe trauma, which anybody dealing with addiction also has severe trauma. So that's why we really focus on treating trauma first and foremost. And people with addictive patternings, they'll fall under that category. So that's kind of the difference. Like when people call us and they just want a psychospiritual experience, well, then we recommend Iboga. And we have a tribe that we're connected to in Africa in the tradition of Gabon. Do you want to talk about our connection with Audrey and team?
Yeah, so when we were building Bassé, the medicine kept telling me the name of the company is Bassé, and that means truth, integrity, and reciprocity is near and dear to me and Kat's hearts, and we didn't want to take from a culture. So we actually found, typically with Iboga, it's the men that serve medicine and the women can only receive. And so we actually found this ancient Bwiti Fang tribe that's it's female led, and we went and asked permission to call the company Bassé, and the whole village of women took Iboga together and giggled about the two white women that wanted to call the company Bassé and gave us their blessing. So we actually partnered with their nonprofit and we're replanting iboga trees through them for each client that comes through our center and just really trying to honor, what came before and not take, that was really important to us.
Well said. Yes. So we have a relationship with a beautiful facilitator and tribe that we trust for the psychospiritual experience solely. But our space is for people dealing with the trauma and addiction and even chronic pain, which we'll speak to that in a second.
But
But
I want to touch, but even like, for people need to have cardiac screening even before Iboga, right? Like it has to happen. It's non-negotiable, with these medicines, proper, medications need to be reviewed, it's cardiac, liver enzymes. I mean, all of these things play a role and electrolytes, and you can't get around this with these medicines. So
we have to be very conscious of heart health with working with either one. Yeah. Yeah. What about microdosing ibogaine?
So I'm a no with that at home because if you mix things that interfere with it, it is not safe, right? And most people don't have enough medical knowledge to really know what interferes and what doesn't. Even some supplements can interfere, right? So that's a big one. And let me even give an example. Grapefruit juice interacts. Right. So if somebody's at home microdosing and they have a glass of juice, like it could be very, very dangerous. Also, what else have you taken recently? I think I begin always medically. I can't waver on that. I don't believe that it's ever safe to get around that.
Not to mention that sourcing real, pure pharmaceutical grade ibogaine is not an easy feat for a lot of reasons. And we know there's lots of shady characters selling stuff on the internet that isn't what it says it is. There's a lot of things that are sold as ibogaine that are not ibogaine or at least aren't pure ibogaine. So it's hard to trust that because it's not regulated. So yeah, this is just a medicine that across the board we feel like needs to be worked with experts in a medical setting that because it has these safety factors. That's why we're having a webinar that is about safety with ibogaine because there's just a lot of factors to consider.
And even, I just want to chime in on that, like even from a safety perspective, like at our clinic, we never give Ibogaine on the first day. The soonest we would ever treat someone is on day 4 because the first few days it's lab stabilization, electrolyte balancing, really preparing you. It's not just something it's not something to microdose. It's not psilocybin. It's, definitely not that. So.
Rainbow's asking, do we feel the same about iboga as a plant? And I don't have the expertise with iboga itself to advise on that, but I will say we know iboga is, well, depending on who you ask, near extinction or in danger of. And just to be really careful with this sacrament in particular, that we're really working with it because we feel deeply called to it. And again, with iboga, there's a lot of people selling iboga that isn't iboga. And so because
But
it
lots of things interfere with iboga too. You also should not have grapefruit juice. It's the same situation, just carried over. So no, I think all of these medicines, like it needs a different level of respect, in my opinion. Psilocybin is a whole different situation where you can microdose that, right? But I believe that iboga, ibogaine, that's a different, situation
it's just
across the
trickier.
board.
Just a
Yeah.
lot of things to consider that most people aren't aware of. And yeah, not to say people haven't had success with it. I'm not discrediting that. It's just if we're speaking from the lens of safety, that we don't advise it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Safety and best practices, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So speaking of safety, like this is a philosophical question that you and I talk about a lot. And I'm really curious, I would love for you to share your perspective with everyone. Is we joke a lot that in the ayahuasca space, it's not hard to find people who are very well intended that are doing beautiful work. There's a lot of really scary headlines around clinics doing things, really awful things. And it seems like Ibogaine just attracts a certain level of person who's maybe not healed and still intentionally causing harm. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think that lands on a lot of different levels, right? I think, well, as we talk about, right, it's like the medicine of truth. And so I think, well, I know what's on the other side of truth. It could really like be framed as like delusion, right? And so it's a lot to hold this and to actually, do it in a way that honors the patients, honors the medicine, and honors the medical safety of it. And, there's a lot of money to be made with ibogaine. And so, we see huge groups of people being treated at some clinics, and we don't think that that's safe, right? And it's needs to be the patient's health over profits. And yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of bad actors in this space. I don't really know what to say fully, so I'm still
Yeah.
trying to come
Yeah.
fully to terms with it myself, right?
You and I have talked about too, it's interesting because as we experience Ibogaine, it feels very masculine, this like very direct
Yeah.
communicator of truth. And there might be something in that too, that the masculine medicine attracts the unhealed masculine as well. And it's not just men that are abusive in the space, of course. Although I think we're the only female-led clinic. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know of
think
any other
so.
clinics
Yeah.
that have women leading. It's a very, very masculine space, as you mentioned with even Iboga almost every single Bwiti tribe, only the men can serve, except for the Fang. So there's that too, that there's this patriarchal element that seems to be part of what the medicine exposes and maybe invites us to heal. But yeah, we're always kind of dumbfounded of like, wow, it's crazy. This space is wild. And that's true for all plant medicines, but ibogaine is in a league of its own, which is we want to share that with people, not to spread fear, but to again educate that you got to be really careful who you trust. And there are people who clinics that feel like they're professionals, that they've been around a while and they know what they're doing, and they've got a really shady past to be aware of. So we've got to be extra discerning with ibogaine.
But I
So
think it's trusting yourself, asking the right questions, right? And just being curious of how it feels, right? Like, yeah, are you actually being supported? Like, how are you being asked proper medical questions? Are they responsive, right? How does the place look? Like, seeing pictures of it, like, you know, asking to talk to previous clients if they're willing, and, just really kind of lifting up under the hood a bit.
and what about integration? How important is that with ibogaine? What are some similarities with other medicines? What's different?
Yeah, I mean with ibogaine, it's kind of non-negotiable, right? I mean, here's the thing, like, I mean, we treat depression, anxiety, addiction, PTSD, trauma, but ultimately, like, you have to be willing to change your life afterwards. Ibogaine does not change who you are. It does not override free will. But if you're looking to make the necessary changes and adjustments in your life, it will work for you. But you have to be willing to show up afterwards. And integration is a huge part, not only like unpacking the experience right afterwards, because it's profound. It's considered like 10 years of therapy in 24 hours. So it really helps to make the unconscious conscious so that you can understand and step out of these cycles, loops, patterns, behaviors. So that's a huge piece. But then what you do when you get home ultimately determines it. I mean, the reason that like a rehab is 28 days is it takes 28 days to relearn a new pattern. I'm not just talking with addiction, but trauma, coming home to yourself, changing your life. And so aftercare is just essential to the process. And, being able to like really instill new healthy habits, new healthy rituals, like how are you actually going to show up and change, right? Because as Kat said, like this medicine, it isn't like something that's just readily available everywhere. And it's a privilege, like truly a privilege to work with this medicine. So I think part of it going into it is like making that commitment and accountability piece to yourself, to the medicine, to your life of how you want to show up and change.
Aho, as the person who runs the integration with Bassé, like, yeah, couldn't agree more. And I want to emphasize too, what's unique about ibogaine is that it occupies these like receptor sites in our bodies that are connected to dopamine, serotonin, and we have this window of opportunity with neuroplasticity that is really a profound gift. And if we squander that by just dismissing the need to make positive changes, you're making kissy faces at our cat, I know you are, then we ruin this opportunity that Ibogaine offers as this incredible space of neuroplasticity to ground in new behaviors and changes, because like that's the work in integration. So and Ibogaine is unique in the way it stays in our system. You always say for 1 to 3 months, depending on the speed of our metabolism, that the medicine is still co-creating with us. It's still in our bodies. And like that's pretty like spectacular. That also means sometimes things like sleep are disrupted. Like I do want to emphasize as much as ibogaine is this incredible like opportunity for a neurological reset, that's not a walk in the park. The ceremony or the treatment itself can be intense, but so can the integration of just feeling like you're recalibrating. Like some people have sleep issues for a while afterwards. Sometimes it does feel like, whoa, what just happened? Like you're a snow globe that just got shaken up. And it can take a little bit to settle and to feel like you've got a new normal, a new baseline. That's partly why integration is really important too, is just the self-care in grounding in after such a powerful experience. So
Love the saying too, neurons that fire together wire together. Yeah.
that's awesome. And another thing that our mentor, Dr. Mash, has shared recently, just in talking about the complexity of the brain and the nervous system, didn't she say that there are more neurons in our brains than there are stars in the sky in the
In the galaxy,
galaxy?
yeah. Yeah.
Like that just kind of blows me away of just how complicated the basically the technology of our brains and nervous systems that Ibogaine in particular is so incredible at working with. But that means that it's not easy to go through an experience that does a reset. It can be very destabilizing for a period of time, which again is why you want to sit with people who know how to help you come back into a much better space of stability. But that can take some time. Does anybody here have questions? You want to unmute or raise your Zoom hand if you want to ask or put things in chat? Like we're happy to talk about anything in the ibogaine space that you're curious about, as if we happen to have the answer, that is. Anybody want to chime in? Shannon says, so is ibogaine extracted from the iboga root and then recreated in a lab? Not quite. Laura, do you want to take that
It's
one?
it's an isolated alkaloid, so it is extracted. Yeah.
It's extracted, but it's not recreated. It's just extracted. And basically, Shannon, in a concentrated form, we want to work with. So it takes a lot of iboga or bokanga, which is another plant that has high concentrations of ibogaine, to extract so that we're just using the pure ibogaine. It's not chemically manipulated, it's just isolated. Colleen wants to know, is there a special diet that we have to follow before sitting with ibogaine?
It's not like ayahuasca like that, no. But again, we go through medication, supplements, and then on site we it's really healthy food. So everything's farm to table, no gluten, no dairy, no seed oils, no refined sugars. So lots of electrolyte balancing, and just we're really aware and conscious of the food we're putting in people. So that preps you while you're at our center, but nothing prior to that. We can accommodate a vegan diet, absolutely. Any dietary request can absolutely be accommodated on site.
So Shannon wants to know, like, it's a, or sorry, it's actually Samantha. It wants to know, it's a great question around age. What's a safe age for sitting with ibogaine? Because we mentioned these cardiac complications. So what's your feeling on that?
So we've actually treated people in their 70s before. It really comes down to health, cardiac health, and lab works, right? Liver, blood work, electrolytes. Anybody above 50 years old, we do require a Holter monitor to enter the program. So that's an important piece too, and it lets us, see your heart rate for an extended period of time. But it's more about health than an actual strict age limit.
Colleen's also asking what supplements need to be stopped and for how long. That would take
That's across
days
the board. That is,
because
I need the list and then I advise you because everything's different. It doesn't fit neatly into a specific category. So it depends on how it's metabolized in the liver, if it's a QT prolonging medication. And so it's just all across the board. So when we talk to each client, we build out the case profile for each client individually. This is not a one size fits all approach. The medical team meets, we assess all the meds, any pre-existing health conditions, lab workup. We really build the profile out for each person individually because, yeah, it's not a blanket statement.
we have to consider half-life of supplements, other supplements that are taken with it because there's pharmacology involved in that. Like it's a really complicated thing. Here's a great question. Sandy wants to know, can you take a day-by-day experience of what it's like at Bassé?
Yeah. So, well, upon arrival, we pick you up from the airport, bring you back to our center. The first day is just more of a travel day. You'll rest and acclimate from the flight in. Then on day two, we do a full EKG, liver panel test, and blood workup. The medical team will meet with you one-on-one, really do a deep assessment. Lots of questions. We do a psych evaluation upon arrival too, just to really make sure that, this is safe for you to receive. And then on day three, we just continue to keep you stabilized, prepare you. We do somatic therapy on site as well. We offer like 3 to 4 activities each day, and to really help you prepare, process, integrate. And so day three, we help you set your intentions, have like a little mini meditation ceremony, get you prepared medically. We're doing EKGs each day, as I mentioned before, too. And then on day four is when you receive if you're coming for the week-long program, day four is when you would receive the flood dose of Ibogaine. And during the entire treatment, you're medically monitored the entire time. Our two MDs will each take a 12-hour shift along with two RNs. You wear the EKG the entire time. You have the IV in your arm for hydration, and we monitor your pulse. You're not left alone even for 2 seconds. The next morning at sunrise, we bring you out of the treatment room. And so the next day we love to do like lavender tea and nervines to just like kind of calm and relax the nervous system. And the fifth day is just more of a processing day to really like feel and integrate. And we have the somatic therapy and some movement activities as well that day, just light, gentle, nurturing. And then days 6, 7, and 8, it's just more integration activities, like really helping you process that unconscious material that has come up. And then we also give daily massage. We have signature daily body work that's incorporated. We do different like meditation, breath work each day, subconscious illumination. Basically, as I said before, helping to make the unconscious conscious so that you can rewrite your own personal narrative. And you're meeting each day with the doctors and each meal is spent with the doctors and just really tons of one-on-one care and support. I can't emphasize that enough. That's truly what sets our program apart. It's just everyone is so dedicated to your well-being there. And then on day 8, you would fly home. We take you back to the airport, and then we actually include a 30-day aftercare integration program into the cost of the treatment. And Kat also meets with each client individually when they get home. So, yeah.
Lots of opportunities for self-discovery, connecting with nature. Our clinic is like in the most beautiful little section of the Mexican Riviera jungle. We got the birds and like I guess there are even jaguars nearby, but we don't see them, but you can feel them. Like it's just a beautiful little sanctuary to kind of really experience that reset. So yeah, Laura described beautifully the kind of flow. We have a question from Alan saying he's been diagnosed with severe PTSD in 2004 and has been taking pills ever since. And he heard this works pretty good for vets. I will preface this by saying because of vets who suffer from PTSD, that's one of the reasons why Ibogaine is having a moment. Like it's really reaching more people's awareness because vets are speaking out about this in some ways being the only process that actually helped. Because let's face it, there's not a lot of things that people with severe PTSD can turn to. There's a couple of modalities that are helpful in therapy space, but it takes a lot of time. And so ibogaine is really quite special on how it helps. Do you want to speak to the audience of people who, just went and faced war to stand for democracy and have PTSD as a result?
Yeah, I mean we treat a lot of veterans, right? And see just amazing results. And I think it comes back to too what I was talking about before. It's like when you're experiencing the medicine, right? It's those third party perspective visions. It's like it allows you to just view PTSD and trauma from a completely different lens so that it's not re-triggering. You actually have these major aha moments of like, wow, it's a reframe. It's just looking at your life from a completely different lens of like things that used to feel like the pull and the trauma towards it. You're just able to see it from a new vantage point, almost like you're watching a movie, right? It feels internally like you're watching this movie on the back of your eyelids. And so you're watching it not almost as you're watching it from this third party perspective where you have compassion for what you see, but it gives this different reframe where it's not as triggering and it's really healing to the nervous system. You can feel while you're in the medicine, this process of like the nervous system like reparenting and repatterning itself, right? And so it doesn't have that same trauma pull to it anymore. It's not that you forget it, it's a reframe, it's a reset. Yeah.
I just did an integration session a day or two ago with an Army vet that was in like 2 decades ago, did a couple tours and was just severely traumatized as a result. Now, since working with Ibogaine, he said his 14-year-old son heard him laugh for the first time in his life, like a true belly laugh. He's finally able to engage with his family and to be present to his son's baseball game and just enjoying his life, which is really the very simple and profound thing that a lot of people just don't have the opportunity to do without a chance to kind of reset the nervous system. So it is like vets and just people who suffer from childhood trauma and things like that are just like the people that we see ridiculously beautiful results, and it's just so gratifying, just especially because a lot of these people don't have hope outside of ibogaine because they've just been surviving and didn't know that there was a path to kind of have a reset. Colleen would like to know, like, what kind of prep work needs to be done? We talked a little bit about diet, but is there other things that you recommend people to do to prepare?
Yeah, so when people actually sign up for our program, we give like a 25-page prep book. But I mean, Kat, do you want to touch on that too, since you're kind of preparation and integration? I mean, medicines that have to be discontinued, that's part of the prep, right? But do you
Yeah.
want to talk about the other lens of this?
Yeah, this is where there are similarities with medicines like ayahuasca, is like preparation, like the heart of it for me is around this capacity to sit with what is uncomfortable and our willingness just to continue to process our emotions, to be with them. Because Ibogaine's not going to make it all go away. It will fast track a lot of this. But having this opportunity to sit and be in a space of being rather than doing is the language I like to use, and just to practice that going in. Of course, like really working on our intentions and being very, very vulnerable with them. Not just like, oh, I hope to heal my trauma, of like really bring to the medicine the depth of the vulnerability around how hard it's been to deal with addiction, to deal with trauma, to deal with pain, like whatever it is, like to get to the heart of the matter. And beyond that, just being as open to the medicine being unexpected. Because one of the things we hear universally with ibogaine, ayahuasca, etc., is like, "Whoa, that didn't happen the way I expected," because it never follows what the mind expects. For example, speaking of vets, a lot of the vets we've treated are like, "Wow, I wasn't processing what happened in war. I was processing what happened when my dad didn't show up to my baseball game." Like childhood trauma. Like it's really quite unexpected and mysterious how the medicine works. So we do all this prep work and then we recommend people to just kind of hands off the wheel as much as we can. That's a difficult thing to be passionate and engaged with what we're asking for, but to also be like surrendered to the experience being surprising. But I do encourage people to celebrate confusion and like allow the process to shake them up like a snow globe. So that's what a lot of the preparation is around. But ultimately, we can't really prepare because even you and I who have sat with medicines frequently, you've been with ibogaine multiple times. It's always different,
Yeah.
and it's always beyond what we can imagine it will be. So, it's just really prepping to be able to receive the medicine in a clear and safe way. All right, so here's a great topic. Rose is asking about people with traumatic brain injuries. Like, what have you seen with ibogaine in that avenue?
Yeah, I mean, that is on a case by case basis because it depends what the TBI is, right? So that can't be a blanket statement with TBI. So ibogaine is used to treat TBI, but each case has to be really specific and it has to be looked at in depth. And yeah, yeah,
It's another
depends
category
on
of
the
people who are
case.
getting called in medicine as athletes or people whose bodies have been hammered by the lives that they have lived in. And there are amazing stories, but then there are cases where ibogaine is not safe just based upon whatever's happening in their physiology. Okay, here's a question. What is the cost? What does this cost for people?
The cost, it's 13,500 for the week because it's 24-hour medical care, right? You're paying for full-on medical care and support. We operate as a small hospital. So, yeah, that's it's yeah, 24-hour doctors and nurses, lab testing. So everything is included in the cost of the treatment.
That is the unfortunate part about this is it has to be expensive. There are places that are a lot more expensive. There are places that are less expensive. Those places don't do all of the medical screening. They don't do all the testing. And so we advise like just be really careful. Unfortunately, because this is an expensive thing, there are a lot of nonprofits popping up that are supporting people that are war vets that have gone through, certain categories of trauma that are helping them to financially afford this. Because, of course, unfortunately, it's illegal in the States. You have to travel to places like Mexico to do it. It is expensive, but there are lots of organizations that are starting to help. We provide scholarships. We do a lot of things to try to help people. We don't want money to be the reason why they can't have this. At the same time, it's expensive because it's the only way to create that safety. Kathleen saying, so when ibogaine is synthesized, does that mean it's synthetic? And does Bassé use use synthesized compounds?
It's extracted. It's not synthetic. So, yeah.
It's an interesting hybrid because there is a process of extraction that has to occur, but it's still from an organic plant medicine. It is, in other words, it's not something that's recreated in a synthetic way in the lab. It's taken from either Volcanga or ibogaine or iboga, sorry, and used in concentrated forms. So it's not synthetic, but it is extracted. Rainbow wants to know, will this support people with chronic fatigue, with fibromyalgia, basically like things like autoimmune conditions? What do you see there?
It's on a case by case basis with what it is, right? That's again, we would have to build out the patient profile, know the history, the lab work, anything that you're taking, what you've experienced in the past. So we really focus on safety, right? And I can't, a lot of clinics out there, it's like selling snake oil with ibogaine, that it even cures low libido and hair loss. And we don't subscribe to that model. So it really depends on why the person's seeking it, what they've tried in the past, what they're taking, what their labs look like. So yeah, it's truly on an individual case by case basis with all of that.
So the short answer is Rainbow, it can help. It can be incredible, but like even two people diagnosed with the same autoimmune issue it's gonna show up and manifest in different ways.
Yeah.
So Laura, I appreciate your approach on that. You're not trying to oversell,
No.
be like, oh, it cures everything, because like there's just so much complexity to
Yeah.
working with ibogaine. Yeah. Kathleen wants to know, how do you handle, oh, wait a second. Before I go to Kathleen, do you purge with Ibogaine?
You can purge like once. It's not like Aya where it's just perpetual. Typically, if you're going to purge with the medicine, it's when it first comes on. But a lot of people don't purge too. So I know that I purge a lot with Aya, and with Ibogaine, I don't really purge. So yeah,
It can happen. It's just not
yeah,
as common.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing we haven't covered is people that are dealing with opiate addiction. Kathleen wants to know, how do you handle withdrawals before the actual treatment?
Yeah, so for opiate addiction, we actually stabilize our patients on morphine prior to treatment. So we would keep them comfortable. Yeah, so yeah, there is stabilization that way because Ibogaine is the reset. So you can actually give morphine up until like midnight the night before, and then the next morning start the Ibogaine treatment, and then that's safe for them, right? But you have to titrate the dose down and so that it's done in a safe way. But yeah, we absolutely stabilize people prior to the treatment.
What about with alcohol detox?
Yeah, so with alcohol detox, it's trickier, right? You would have to come in for a longer program, and then we would have to get you fully detoxed off the alcohol, like in a medical way prior to administering the Ibogaine. You cannot go from alcohol withdrawals into Ibogaine. That's absolutely not safe. So
But it is good news for people dealing with opiate addiction that they do not have to go through like the cold turkey awful withdrawals. Like it's not necessarily a zero in terms of there's no withdrawal effects, but we work really hard to keep people very comfortable and stable before the treatment. And then it's always amazing to see people in that space of, oh my God, I'm not craving anything. I've had the full reset after. I don't think it'll ever get old for me to get to witness that incredible transformation. Um, do we offer any type of financial assistance, scholarships? Like, what's that look like?
yeah, we do. I mean, again, that's on a case by case basis too, but yeah, yeah, we do.
And we know nonprofits in the space that offer financial assistance for people that qualify and are establishing relationships with more of those all the time because of this cost prohibitive nature. It's so lovely that there are people who are putting resources together to assist and support people. Emma, hi Emma, was curious about interaction with marijuana. If someone smokes every day, would you require them to stop smoking for a period of time before taking Ibogaine?
Yeah, it depends on how much they're smoking, if it's gummies, how they're ingesting it. Again, that's it. All of these things are really truly on case by case basis, right? Because it depends how you're consuming it. Are you using it as an escape, right? Are you using it because you have pain? And so it's not just a blanket statement on any of that stuff, right? For medical safety, like if it's something that you're consuming orally, like a gummy and THC, yes, we have it stopped. If you're smoking from time to time or, even daily. It depends why you're using it, how you're using it, and how it builds in your system.
Everybody's asking great questions. Colleen also wants to know about drug testing. Do we drug test people? Like, talk
Every
about that.
day. Yep. That's part of the safety. Yeah.
Because you can speak as a former addict, how
Yeah.
crafty,
Well,
like,
it's not even that, but we just need to know what's in people's systems coming in. I mean, that's a part of it, what you're mentioning too. But it just, we're a medical center. The team has to have awareness of, what you're coming in with and what you're working with. And that's just a part of our safety, keeping you safe.
and how much time before you have to stop medications before doing the treatment? I mean, it depends on the
All
medication.
across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a
Yeah.
case by case basis.
Here's the thing, everybody. All of you that have specific questions around this, if you're interested in working with a medicine, like go to basseibogaine.com. There's a number there. You call, you speak to Laura, and you give her your specific things of what you're dealing with, and she can speak to it in a very personal way.
Kat, you can also drop my email address in there too, and people can email, yeah, if they have any
Okay, will do.
questions.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, Samantha's asking about what about nicotine? Nicotine addiction, nicotine, is it dangerous in combination with ibogaine?
no, I mean it's not that I mean no, but it I wouldn't say that we treat nicotine addiction at our center. So
Some places do, many places do.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There isn't the scientific evidence around that, right? But is it dangerous? Can people still work with nicotine if they smoke? Do they have to quit smoking?
No, I mean you can smoke, but just not for, the main part of the treatment. We don't let people smoke, right? So yeah.
yeah, typically don't really think about much
Yeah.
other than what the experience is. But yes, there's anecdotal evidence that people have said they've taken ibogaine and stopped smoking as a result. But the same is true for ayahuasca and other medicines. But we don't advertise that as a promise because there's no evidence for it. Colleen, I'm going to put into chat the address for Bassé. It's basséibogaine.com. And Bassé is spelled Basse. Bassé. And then if you want to reach Laura directly, it's Laura, Laura, at basséibogaine.com. And you can go to our website too. There's just tons of blogs and content around education. I should mention that we are incredibly blessed to have Dr. Deborah Mash as our scientific advisor and mentor, because I don't think there's a person alive that has more experience with this medicine that she does. And like just spending 5 minutes in her space, my brain gets bigger. She's like a genius around brain because she ran the Department of Neuropharmacology at University of Miami. Is that right? For many years, and it's just like incredibly wise. And she's the one who did the human testing, so she understands this medicine. And we're really blessed to have her mentorship because she's a powerhouse in this space. A lot of the awareness of ibogaine exists because of her. Yeah. Shout out Miami. Yeah. Anybody else? You guys, great questions. Thank you for all of this. You're super welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being curious. Thank you for making sure to be discerning and wherever you access this medicine to assure that it's being done in a very safe way. Because Laura and I are passionate about that too, because when it's not and the headlines hit, ibogaine gets blamed instead of the individuals that are reckless and uneducated. So we're really passionate that it's a very safe medicine to work with if you're educated and you understand the language of the medicine. So thank you for just showing up, caring about that, for supporting us and our work. It's an honor. And Laura, thank you for all
Yeah.
that you do. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, we'll see you next time. I hope. Be well out there.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.